Welcome to the Daily Insider here on VegasInsider.com. Kevin Rogers with you as we turn the calendar to August. Tuesday, August 3rd, that's right. And the NFL Hall of Fame game is coming up on Thursday night between the Steelers and the Cowboys in Canton, Ohio. So the NFL is finally here, and we're inching closer towards college football. NBA free agent signings began yesterday. So still a lot of news. And then, of course, Major League Baseball. We'll look at all the games for today. But before we get to that, let us begin with the Daily Insider Contest, which we have every Tuesday and Thursday here on the Daily Insider. It's very easy to enter, as you just put your Vegas Insider user ID in the comments section below, along with your best bet for the day. And pretty much we're limited right now to Major League Baseball. But you can choose a side, a total, a run line, a strikeout prop for a pitcher, a first inning line, a first 5-inning line. So you have plenty of choices there as far as that goes. So you put your Vegas Insider user ID along with your best bet for the day in the comments section below. And if you win your best bet, you'll be in the drawing for a week's worth of free handicapper picks from one handicapper of your choosing on VegasInsider.com. So 7 days worth of free picks, $100 value for free from one handicapper at VegasInsider.com if you win. Remember, your name is in the drawing if you win your bet. So, again, if you lose, you're not going to win the picks. And even if you win, you still have to be picked to get the prize. Now, if you do not have a Vegas Insider user ID, it's very easy to get. Go to the big yellow register button in the upper right-hand corner. Click on that. Free membership. Register now. Click on that. Create your user ID and password, email address, first name, last name. Those are real, the first name and last name. You just create the ID and password. And put your phone number, and our marketing team will get in contact with you. And at least now you'll be part of the community here at VegasInsider.com, and we appreciate that. So let us begin with Major League Baseball. I want to quickly go over last night's games because you had a lot of underdogs come through in Major League Baseball on Monday. Now, out of the 8 games in Major League Baseball, the Marlins ended up getting a grand slam in the first inning to beat the Mets 6-3. New York continues to struggle against left-handed starting pitchers. Jesus Luzardo in his Marlins debut. He came over from Oakland in the Starling Marte deal, and he picks up a win. Also, the Indians with a huge underdog win over the Blue Jays after Toronto came back to Rogers Center this past weekend. They swept Kansas City, and then the Indians ended up beating the Blue Jays 5-2 yesterday afternoon as a heavy dog. The Orioles knock off the Yankees as a heavy dog 7-1 in Andrew Heaney's debut after he came over from the LA Angels. And the Yankees pulled off the 3-game sweep of the Marlins this past weekend on the road. They return home to face the Orioles, and Baltimore beats them. And also Seattle, now 5-0 this year against Tampa Bay, as they beat up the Rays 8-2, a big letdown spot for Tampa Bay after they swept Boston at home this past weekend. So 3 teams off sweeps, all lost as heavy favorites over after they came off sweeps over the weekend. They all lost as heavy favorites on Monday. So now let's look ahead to today in Major League Baseball. Today and really tonight. There's no day games in Major League Baseball. So let's begin with the Phillies and the Nationals, and that's one game we did not go over looking back at Monday, as Philadelphia rallied past Washington 7-5, a game that if you had the under of 8.5, that's a little bit of bad luck for you because that was a 3-2 game going to the ninth. On an 8.5 total, Philadelphia scored 5 runs in the top of the ninth inning to go over the total. Washington got 2 in the bottom of the ninth. And, of course, the Nationals, since the trade deadline on Friday, they've unloaded Max Scherzer, Trey Turner, Brad Hand. A lot of guys have now gone or have been dealt. Josh Harrison also went to Oakland. Yan Gomes went to Oakland. So the Nationals have pretty much broken up the party. After they won the World Series a few seasons ago, now they're going to kind of start from scratch. And Josiah Gray, who was picked up in the Max Scherzer deal, actually went 5 innings last night, allowed 4 hits and 1 run. But unfortunately, the Nationals bullpen could not hold the lead, and Washington ended up losing that game to Philadelphia 7-5. So the Phillies get back-to-back road wins, which is very rare. Philadelphia this season, off a road win, they're 4-16, which is an amazing stat that they just can't put together back-to-back wins on the road very often. And again, they did it. They won Sunday at Pittsburgh in Kyle Gibson's debut on the mound. And then last night, Ranger Suarez started. He's a reliever. He only went 3 innings. I mean, they're running out of arms there in Philadelphia. And now they go to Zach Wheeler tonight. And Zach Wheeler's a heavy favorite opposite Patrick Corbin. Now, Zach Wheeler, who is putting up really good numbers this year, I mean, the record may not show it. He's 8-6, but 2.45 ERA, 165 strikeouts, 32 walks. And the former Met, he has been the ace of this Phillies rotation this season, coming off a 5-1 win over the Braves. And the issue with Wheeler, at least his only issue, is he's had some struggles against Washington so far this season from a win-loss standpoint. The Phillies are 1-2 in his 3 starts against Washington. Again, the Nationals have changed things around, but in the 2 losses, the Phillies scored 2 and 1 run. So they haven't really gotten their offense going in those games. And now they face Patrick Corbin, who, again, has not had a good record this year, has bad numbers, 5.78 ERA. He's winless in his last 3 starts. He's allowed, in fact, 14 earned runs in his last 3 starts, all losses, including an 11-8 loss to the Phillies his last time out. Doesn't have bad numbers against Philadelphia, but I do point to that, Phillies stat about 4-16 on the road off a win, or off a road win, I should say. But yet, I don't know how you really want to trust Washington at this point. They did take 2 of 3 from the Cubs this past weekend. The Cubs also purged their team as well. But that's a tough one to begin. The Mets and the Marlins, mentioned that the Marlins ended up bouncing back from the 3-game sweep at the hands of the Yankees this past weekend. So now they get the Mets, and they beat them last night. No starting pitcher named yet for New York, or for Miami rather. Taijuan Walker goes for New York. And the Mets, who picked up Javi Baez from the Cubs at the trade deadline. He's played a few games so far. But New York, though, they're just 1-4 their last 5 games. And the 2 wins, actually, if you look back at it, the Mets are 4-6 their last 10, all 4 wins coming by 1 run apiece. So this Mets team not doing anything dazzling over the last, their last few wins. They held off the Braves in that 2-1 victory last week, in which the Braves had a tying run thrown out at the plate in the 9th inning. The Mets beat the Reds in extra innings a few nights ago. So it's been a lot of close calls for the Mets of late. And the Marlins, look, they finally got the offense to bust out a little bit, an early grand slam, but then 2 runs the rest of the way for them. So they had 1 big inning, and then against the Yankees, they scored 4 runs that whole weekend. And again, we don't know who the starting pitcher is for the Marlins tonight. For Taijuan Walker, he's allowed in his last 3 starts 16 earned runs. So he has struggled for the Mets. The Brewers and the Pirates tonight from Milwaukee, and the Brewers continue their dominance of the Pirates last night with a 6-2 win. They swept the Pirates last weekend at PNC, so Pittsburgh continues to roll, or Milwaukee continues to roll over Pittsburgh, And Adrian Hauser takes the mound tonight for the Brewers. For Hauser, 7-5 record, 3.69 ERA, not bad considering Milwaukee's got some big arms in that rotation. And Hauser actually, when you look back at it, as far as his last 8 starts, the Brewers are 8-0. So Milwaukee wins when Hauser takes the mound, and he's coming off 5 scoreless innings against the Pirates his last time out, but he's not been this heavy of a favorite. I mean, laying 220 tonight against Pittsburgh. Max Kranick goes for the Pirates, and Pittsburgh's been outscored 21-6 the last 2 games. Kranick actually pitched opposite Hauser in that 7-3, or actually in a 7-3 loss back on July 28th. 6 earned runs he allowed, and the Pirates are 0-3 in his last 3 starts. So tread lightly if you want to take the Pirates tonight. The Braves and the Cardinals from Busch Stadium in St. Louis. And Atlanta has continued this streak. Call it coincidence, call it whatever you want. But the Braves have now gone 17 straight games since the All-Star break. 17 straight games alternating wins and losses. And they are off a loss to Milwaukee on Sunday. So you would think the Braves are due for a win tonight because they have gone loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, starting from the All-Star break. So they have not lost 2 in a row since the All-Star break. They haven't won 2 in a row either. So a pretty amazing stat, and it just goes to show you Atlanta 52-54. This is what you expect out of them this year, that they're just going back and forth with the win-loss, and they just can't sustain any winning streaks. They've had a couple losing streaks, but they can't get any big winning streaks going. And Max Fried takes them out for Atlanta tonight. 7-7 record, 4.32 ERA. Last 2 starts, both losses on the road at Philadelphia and at the Mets. And that Mets loss, the 2-1, is one I talked about with the tying run getting thrown out the plate in the 9th inning. But Fried, 5.85 road ERA. And he's had a couple of rough starts on the road, to say the least. But now he gets St. Louis, who he actually pitched really well against back in June in Atlanta. 9-1 victory, 7 innings, 2 hits, an earned run, and 6 strikeouts. So Fried really pitched well in that game. John Lester makes his Cardinals debut tonight. The former Cub, former Red Sox, southpaw. 3-5 this year with Washington. 5.02 ERA, was dealt to St. Louis at the trade deadline. And he faced Atlanta twice as a member of Washington. The Nationals split those 2 games. So now he gets the start against Atlanta, and the Cardinals, coming off of a weekend series victory over the Twins, took 2 of 3 against Minnesota. And now the Cardinals, an underdog tonight against Atlanta. The Cubs and Rockies, they meet up in Denver at Coors Field, and the Rockies boasting one of the best home records in baseball, 33-20, as opposed to 13-40 on the road. And the Cubs are 20-35 after they've lost all their big guns at the trade deadline. The Cubs come in 1-5 their last 6 games overall. Colorado actually split a 4-game set at San Diego. They won the middle 2 games of that series, and they're coming off a long road trip. Granted, they didn't travel very far. They played a series against the Dodgers in L.A. They went to Anaheim, played the Angels, and went to San Diego. So really, Colorado stayed in Southern California for about 10 days, and now they're back at home, where they begin back-to-back series with the Cubs and the Marlins, which, in fact, could maybe help them out a little bit, help out their home record even more. Kyle Freeland, want to go over this number with Kyle Freeland. You could say. Kyle Freeland, his record is 1-6 this year, ERA of 4.52. In his last 7 starts, dating back to June 22nd for Kyle Freeland, 2.25 ERA. He's been very good, even though the Rockies are 0-4 in that span. But who do they play? Dodgers twice, Padres twice. So now you get the Cubs, who, again, are a shell of themselves. Zach Davies, who has a couple impressive road underdog wins this year, beat the Padres. They had that no-hitter against the Dodgers, the 4-pitcher no-hitter, and beat the Cardinals also. Not too sure I want to really back the Cubs here in this spot where Colorado obviously has a lot of confidence playing at home, and also the Rockies, 11-1 at home this year against teams currently below 500. So when they play those kind of teams, they normally beat them. Speaking of normally beating someone, the Giants, they've owned the Diamondbacks this year. They won again last night, took them extra innings, but San Francisco won that game 11-8 in extras, and I think it's 11-1 this year, the Giants are against the Diamondbacks. So that's helped them. And I'm not going to dog the Giants because they played well against the Dodgers this year. They played well against the Padres. I don't want to say that they're just cleaning up against Arizona. But again, those games are on the schedule. They're eventually going to run out of games against Arizona. But you got to win these games while you have the opportunity. But also, the Giants took 2 of 3 from the Dodgers. They took 2 of 3 from the Astros at home. So I'll give them a break on playing Arizona. So now you have Johnny Cueto and Madison Bumgarner. Bumgarner, the former Giants standout, helped him win a couple World Series last decade. It feels so long ago. But for Bumgarner, though, he's actually pitched well in his few starts since the All-Star break and since coming off the IL. He's allowed 4 earned runs his last 3 starts, only 1 home run. Now, the Diamondbacks are 2-1 in those games. They beat the Rangers and Pirates. Now, granted, they're not the caliber of the Giants. Or the Giants aren't the caliber of those teams, I should say. But for Bumgarner, though, this year he has not faced the Giants. Last year, he faced them once, 4-3 loss in San Francisco back last September. So you know this is a big start for him just to face his former team. I mean, he left San Francisco to sign a big deal with Arizona. Now, Johnny Cueto, he tossed 5 2/3 innings shutout ball against the Dodgers his last time out, 5-0 win. But in Cueto's last 4 starts as a favorite, the Giants are 0-4. So think about that, and also which included a 5-3 loss at Arizona back in early July, in which he allowed 5 earned runs. So if you want to take the shot with the Diamondbacks tonight, it's always a little bit dicey. They're 33-74 on the season. They are way behind the Giants in the National League West, but Arizona, they have the Bumgarner thing going for them. We'll see how much that means. Let's shift over to the American League, the Orioles and the Yankees. Garrett Cole was supposed to start tonight. That's why you see 475, what the Yankees were laying against the Orioles, but Garrett Cole tested positive for COVID, so he is not going to start tonight for Baltimore, or for New York. Nestor Cortez Jr. is slated to start for the Yankees. Alexander Wells for the Orioles. And the number dips down to, 270, 250, depending on where you see it. And the Orioles did beat the Yankees last night 7-1. Baltimore 7-3 their last 10 games. They're playing better. They have some confidence. Again, they're going nowhere, but they're a young team, so they're just trying to get all the wins they can at this point. And for Alexander Wells, his last start, 4 earned runs in 5 innings of work, a 6-2 loss to Detroit. And the Orioles are actually 0-2 in his 2 starts. I mean, it's not been terrible. 7 earned runs in 10 innings, 10 2/3 innings. But for a young guy like this, they, the Orioles, they faced the Rays in one of those games. They faced Detroit, who's played better. So, not bad. Baltimore, 5 straight unders right now they're riding. Yankees, the Yankees are 9-1 to the under the last 10 games. And for Cortez, who is getting the emergency start tonight in place of Garrett Cole, last time he took the mound, July 28th, a 3-1 win for the Yankees over the Rays. 5 innings, 3 hits, an earned run. Now, I'm not telling you to go lay 270 with him, but he wasn't bad. Maybe the under's worth a look tonight. Both teams have been trending to the under. And, again, you have 2 young pitchers on the mound. You don't have Garrett Cole going tonight. But Baltimore's pitched a little better of late. Yankees, they had a bad night last night, but they have had more better pitching performances than poor ones. They had the 14-0 blowout at the hands of Tampa Bay last week, but besides that, they pitched a little better. Cleveland and Toronto at Rogers Center, and the Indians beat the Blue Jays yesterday. So Hyun Jin Ryu and Zach Plesac on the mound here tonight for Game 2 of this series. And Cleveland, I mean, I talk about Atlanta going 17 straight games, going win-loss, win-loss. Cleveland on a modest 7-game win-loss streak. So the Indians off a win, which would mean they probably lose tonight. But again, wait for that thing to get up there before you really want to ride it. Zach Plesac, who was hurt for a while, he's back now. 6-3 record, 4.26 ERA, Indians actually in July in Plesac's 4 starts, they went 3-1. So that's pretty impressive, including a victory at Oakland. So Plesac's a guy that, look, Shane Bieber's out. The Indians don't have a lot of reliable arms right now. Plesac's probably their most reliable active arm. Even though Cal Quantrill's pitched better for Cleveland of late, but Plesac is probably the best guy they have going now without Shane Bieber. Toronto, they have some good lefty arms in their rotation. Robbie Ray, though we got a no decision yesterday. Ryu beat the Red Sox his last time out. Toronto's 3-0 in his last 3 starts, and they've scored 13, 10, and 10. That they've had a lot of really good offensive production with Ryu on the mound. And Tight's total is 8.5, and Toronto laying 200, man. That does tell you a lot, though. When I mentioned that Plesac has pitched pretty well since coming off the IL, but Toronto laid 200 against them. Seattle and Tampa Bay, and look, the Rays are the defending American League champions. They could beat a lot of these teams, but Seattle's got confidence against them. They're 5-0 against Tampa Bay this year. Who would have ever thought that would be the case? And Yusei Kikuchi goes for Seattle. And for Kikuchi, he's allowed 6 earned runs his last 2 starts. Actually, if you back it up, his last 4 starts, he's given up 18 earned runs. So he has not been solid of late. Mariners are 1-3 in those games. He did pitch well, though, against Tampa Bay back in mid-June. 5-1 wins, 7 innings, 4 hits, and earned runs, 6 strikeouts. So you wonder if he can duplicate that here tonight. And Luis Patino on the mound for Tampa Bay. And for Patino, the former Padre, 6 scoreless innings, 3 hits, 8 strikeouts against the Yankees at 14-0 shellacking last week. Rays have won Patino's last, or 3 of his last 4 starts, so that's a positive. And again, Tampa Bay, some reason they just don't play well against Seattle. Now, granted, in the 4 games in Seattle at T-Mobile Park when they played earlier this season, 3 of those wins came in walk-off fashion for the Mariners. So those games were a lot closer than than you see a 4-game sweep and then you get dominated. That wasn't the case. Tampa Bay hung. Granted, the Rays got routed last night, coming off the Red Sox sweep, kind of expected. But Seattle, after they had 2 walk-off losses to Texas, it's kind of evening out for the Mariners a little bit because they've had so many crazy wins at home that they got kind of an easy one last night in beating Tampa Bay, and now they're a dog again. Boston's at Detroit, and the Red Sox, they've kind of hit the skids of late. They've lost 5 in a row. They're 6-10 their last 16. Detroit, who has been one of the most improved teams in the league under A.J. Hinch, Detroit's 13-11 the last 24 games. Okay, so 51-57, they're nearly plus 12 units in the season, Detroit, which is very impressive considering that they were probably going to be them and the Royals, the last place teams in the American League Central. That's not the case. Detroit's not going to be in last place this year. So they have been very competitive. Now, I want to go over these numbers, though. I want to go a little deeper into this. So Detroit's 13-11 their last 24 games. But here's the competition they played. And I don't want to get on the Tigers considering they have exceeded expectations this year. They're 30-24 at Comerica Park. But last 24 games for Detroit, they played Minnesota 10 times. They played Texas 7 times. They got swept by Kansas City, and they just split 4 with Baltimore. Orioles, Twins, Royals, Rangers, all below 500 teams. 24 straight games they played against losing teams with losing records. Boston 6-10 their last 16. They've struggled. Okay, who have they played in that span? Yankees 7 times, Rays 3 times, Blue Jays 4 times, and the Phillies a few times. And the Phillies, the worst team out of the group at 500. So Boston has struggled of late. Their pitching has not been as reliable. Their hitting has kind of fallen off. But they're playing really good competition. The Phillies will not be a playoff team likely. Tampa Bay is defending American League champions. Yankees and Blue Jays are going to be fighting it out for wild card spots. None of those teams Detroit has played recently have been good at all. And Minnesota was the best team out of the bunch going into the season. They've been a total dumpster fire. So just want to throw that one out there for you about those teams and the way that they're going right now. And Boston, they took 2 of 3 from Detroit earlier this season at Fenway Park. Garrett Richards goes for the Red Sox tonight. Over a 5 ERA for Richards. And the good news is the Red Sox haven't lost consecutive starts made by Richards since early June. I mean, he hasn't had great stats, but Boston's offense has carried him in a lot of those games. You're just waiting for the Red Sox offense to really bust out. And look, they ran to Tampa Bay, who's, again, an elite team. So Willie Peralta goes for Detroit tonight, and Peralta actually went a 4-start stretch allowing 1 earned run, which is unbelievable for him, considering, I mean, he was a decent pitcher. I mean, 2014 he won 17 games. And he hasn't won more than 7 games in the season since 2015. So he's, again, at the end of the line. His last 2 starts, he's given up 11 earned runs. Now, granted, the Tigers scored 17 in his last start against Minnesota. But but Peralta's kind of fallen off a little bit. Again, Boston, look, we'll see what they're made of. I mean, they don't want to fall too far behind Tampa Bay. They got some help with the Rays losing to the Mariners last night, but now you're playing Detroit after having this really tough stretch. You got to win these games. You're the Red Sox. You have to. 2 more games in the American League. Angels and the Rangers in Arlington, and Texas has heated up of late. They've won 3 straight, which is kind of crazy. I don't remember the last time they've won 3 in a row. It's been a while. But they had 2 walk-off wins over the Mariners. They beat the Angels last night 4-1. Dane Dunning continues to pitch well at home for Texas. Now they go to Jordan Lyles. And Lyles, he's an innings eater for Texas. His ERA is over 5. But his last 2 starts against Detroit and Arizona, he's gone 7 innings in each of those games. He's a guy that consistently goes 6 innings at least. Like he can get you 6-7 innings if you're the Rangers. Now, Texas is 0-3 his last 3 starts. And he faces an Angels team that's lost 4 or 5. The only win came in a 1-0 victory over Oakland. So the Angels have definitely tapered off a bit. They're 2 below 500. And Texas right now, they win tonight, they'll be at 40 wins for the season, which is unbelievable. I mean, they're not even the worst team in baseball. Arizona's right behind them. And Jose Suarez takes them out for L.A. His numbers aren't great. He lost his last time out against Colorado 12-3, allowed 8 runs in less than 4 innings of work. Not someone I totally have a lot of faith in if I'm back in the Angels, but L.A. now the favorite in this game against Texas. The Angels, I'll give you this number. They 9 times this season, 9 times they have lost a series opener on the road. Their record in game 2 is 2-7. So they don't normally play well in that second game if they're off a loss in the first game. Just putting that one out there. Texas, red hot now. They've won 3 straight. Royals and the White Sox, they begin a series in Chicago, and the White Sox, off of a series victory over Cleveland, they lost 3 or 4 to Kansas City last week on the road. So that one goes 2 ways, where you say, all right, White Sox in revenge mode against the Royals, but also Kansas City has some momentum because they just beat Chicago several times, and they went 6-1 against Detroit and Chicago on their homestand. Also, the Royals got swept at Toronto. So I always like the angle of taking a very undervalued team off of a sweep and then going to the next series, because a lot of people think, oh, well, the White Sox are much better than the Royals, so the Royals are going to lose again. Now, Chris Bubich, who starts for Kansas City tonight, he had a rough stretch in June, early July. His last 3 starts, he's allowed 4 earned runs, including a 3-2 win over the White Sox at home last week, plus 160, 2 earned runs and 6 innings of work. So he actually has pitched a little better of late. Dylan Cease Meanwhile, he beat the Royals in the lone Chicago win in that 4-game set. 6 innings, 2 earned runs, 6 strikeouts, a 5-3 victory for Cease. Now, in Cease's last 2 starts at home, the White Sox have lost to the Twins and lost to the Astros. So the home numbers aren't, okay, I don't want to say they're not great because the home numbers he has are much better, 2.44 ERA compared to a 5.91 ERA on the road, but the White Sox lost each of those 2 games. But still, Chicago, obviously much better than Kansas City. Like that's not under dispute. And the Royals, meanwhile, on an 8-game under streak. So that one, I mean, has more to do with, the offense has not really showed up of late, and they played a good Toronto team this past weekend on the road. And again, the Blue Jays played their first home game since 2019, their first real home game. So they had some momentum going into that series. But I don't know, maybe you want to look at maybe Kansas City plus 1.5, maybe on the run line. I don't want to lay that with the White Sox. I really don't. All right, 3 interleague games, and we're saving kind of the best for last. You have a couple really good matchups there. Excuse me, I hit the wrong button. All right, Minnesota and Cincinnati. And I do like the Twins in this spot. That the Reds off of this very electric series against the Mets this past weekend, and they took 3 of 4 against the Cubs. That was before they totally broke the whole thing down Chicago. Then they took 2 of 3 from the Mets with 1 loss coming in extra innings, and they got really good starts in that series from all their starting pitchers. Tyler Mahle starts for the Reds, Kenta Maeda for the Twins. Maeda's numbers are not good, but Maeda, though, you're still kind of waiting for him to have a good stretch down, as we conclude the season. 4.50 ERA for Maeda, just a 4-4 record. The Twins are 0-3 his last 3 starts, but he went 6 1/3, gave up 4 hits and an earned run against Detroit his last time out. So he pitched well in his last start. Road numbers aren't great, but Maeda, though, going to face Tyler Mahle, who has terrible home numbers this year. Over a 6 ERA for Mahle. He is coming off a good start, 6 scoreless innings and a win over the Cubs. So that may be a good reason to fade him, because a lot of people would say, oh, well, he's off a good start. And you don't think much of the Twins because Minnesota got rid of Nelson Cruz. Josh Donaldson's been banged up, and Minnesota's kind of waved the white flag on the season. But this could be a good fade spot on the Reds, even though they are very short favored here. You look at Cincinnati, much better team than Minnesota this year. And yet, Mahle's laying 125 or so against Minnesota, which doesn't really add up, to say the least. The 2 late-night games in the in interleague play are excellent games. San Diego's at Oakland and Houston's at L.A. Now, first with the Padres and the A's. Oakland still has not settled on a starter. It says Sean Manaea. I'm seeing that in several places, but that's not 100% confirmed. The Padres are without Fernando Tatis Jr. He injured his shoulder over the weekend against the Rockies, so that's obviously hurting them. The A's and Padres split a 2-game series at Petco Park last week, 7-4 win in the opener for San Diego. Then they got blown out 10-4 in the second game, and Blake Snell started the second game. For Snell, it's just been a total disappointment this year, coming over from Tampa Bay. 5.44 ERA, 4-4 record. The road numbers are disgusting. 8.02 ERA away from Petco Park for Blake Snell. And just to put in perspective, I find it interesting that Blake Snell, listen to this, that Blake Snell started the season, right? The Padres were 0-8 his first 8 starts of the season on the road. They're now 3-0 his last 3 starts on the road, beating the Phillies, the Nationals, and the Marlins. So he's been a little better actually on the road. The home numbers are still very good. That was his worst home start of the season against Oakland his last time out. But now you're likely going to get him as an underdog. And Sean Manaea, who, again, you'd think is going to start 8-6 record, 3.01 ERA. Last 2 starts, he's given up 1 earned run. He struck out 22. Oakland won both those games. I don't know. Maybe the Padres could be worth a look tonight as a road dog with Manaea on the mound. Or I mean, with Snell going for San Diego. Maybe. I don't love it, but let's see how that one turns out. Then the best for last: Houston and LA. Rematch of the World Series a few years ago. Astros, Dodgers. You got Max Scherzer going tomorrow night. He'll make his LA debut. Tonight's Walker Buehler. And Walker Buehler right now is the favorite to win the NL Cy Young. Buehler 11-1, 2.19 ERA. Lance McCullers Jr. has had a really good season for the Astros, 8-2 record, 3.23 ERA. And this is the third leg of Houston's road trip. They took 2 of 3 at Seattle, but lost the final 2 at San Francisco. And the Dodgers back at home after they took 2 of 3 from Arizona. And LA still neck and neck with San Francisco for first place in the NL West. And again, very important because even though LA has Max Scherzer now, they have Walker Buehler. Who knows, when Clayton Kershaw's coming back, but nobody wants to play that wild card game. And if you're LA and you can win the division, you start best of 5. And again, what happened in the playoffs last year, that's not happening again this year, so we're back to normal playoffs. But you don't want to play that one-game playoff. Even if you went Scherzer, Buehler, Kershaw, however you want to do it, you don't want that. You don't want to get it down to a one-game scenario. So LA hoping they can get out of the wild card because they would be playing possibly San Diego, and the Padres, they got to hope that Fernando Tatis Jr. returns to health. And the Padres don't have the pitching depth don't have the starting pitching depth that the Dodgers do. That LA, this is very important now that they can take care of business. And it's going to be a very tough series playing Houston. Again, they don't have Trevor Bauer coming back anytime soon with his legal problems. Dodgers and the Astros split a pair of games earlier this season at Minute Maid Park. And again, the 2 pitchers that went for LA in that series, Clayton Kershaw and Trevor Bauer, will not be pitching in the series. So this is only just a 2-game set between these 2 teams. Walker Buehler's numbers have been unbelievable. 11-1 record, 2.19 ERA. Again, if Jacob deGrom wasn't hurt, Buehler wouldn't be the favorite, but Buehler is still having a fantastic season. He's gone 7 innings or more in 3 straight starts. He's allowed 3 earned runs in that span, so he is pitching very well for the Dodgers. 6-1 record, 2.21 ERA at home. For McCullers, you don't really get him at this price normally. Guy's got an 8-2 record on the season. Last time Lance McCullers Jr. was an underdog, actually earlier this season, back in May against the Yankees, plus 170, and the Astros ended up winning that game 7-4 in comeback fashion. And that's the reason why Garrett Cole started for the Yankees that game. But you don't get McCullers as an underdog that often. So, for as much as people want to talk about the Dodgers, all the moves they made, that now, Houston could be definitely worth a look there. To fade Walker Buehler is never, a guarantee. You feel good about that. But the Astros still have a really good pitcher going in Lance McCullers Jr. tonight. So that's a look at Major League Baseball for tonight, and I want to go over a few other things quickly before we exit. The men's basketball team, the United States men's basketball team, they beat Spain. That came early this morning. It was 12:40 Eastern tip-off. But they end up beating Spain 95-81, so the U.S. advances to face Australia in the semifinals, coming up 12:15 Thursday morning, and the U.S. already a 12-point favorite in that game. And in the other semifinals, it's France and Slovenia with Luka Doncic, and France with several good NBA players, Rudy Gobert, Evan Fournier. He's signed a big deal with the Knicks, in fact. But Slovenia is a 2.5 3-point favorite against France, and they play tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. And Australia blasted Argentina 97-59. That was earlier today. France over Italy 84-75. So you have France, Slovenia in one of the semifinals, Australia and the United States in the other semifinals. Then the gold medal match coming up Friday night, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. And we'll see if the U.S. can, in a sense, come back from a bit of a disastrous start and some of the losses they had in the preliminaries and or in the exhibitions, then in the preliminary losing to France. So now they can basically hit the reset button on all of this since they are in the semifinals. But the United States, 2 more wins to win the gold medal. And a couple stories from the NBA, a lot of free agent moves made. Well, some players opt out of deals and re-sign, like Chris Paul in Phoenix. Also, you had Steph Curry re-up with the Warriors, Trae Young re-up with the Hawks. So none of those big surprises. And some of the big names that moved, Kyle Lowry goes from the Raptors to the Heat. Jimmy Butler signed a big extension with the Heat, so now we'll see what Miami can do behind the likes of Brooklyn and Milwaukee and Philadelphia inside the Eastern Conference. Also, Lonzo Ball went to the Bulls. That's pretty interesting. They also got Alex Caruso from the Lakers. Rudy Gay went to the Jazz. That one came out today. So those were some of the moves made, at least some players switching teams. Some of the key players switching teams. Also, Dwight Howard went back to the Lakers. Lakers keep signing these veteran players, veteran presence. And the Lakers now, that's the 3rd stint Dwight Howard's had with L.A., which is kind of crazy. But he spent the year in Philadelphia. Now he's with L.A., and that's what's going on in the NBA right now. So want to remind you again about the Daily Insider contest, which we have every Tuesday and Thursday on the Daily Insider. We'll return to 5 days a week coming up in September when we have football every day. But right now, the Daily Insider contest, very easy to enter. You put in your Vegas Insider user ID along with your best bet for the day. Major League Baseball, it's going to be whether it's a money line, run line, total, strikeout prop for a pitcher, first 5-inning play, a first inning play. It's up to you. You find another prop from a game, go for it. And if you win your best bet, you'll be in the drawing for a week's worth of handicapper picks from one handicapper of your choosing on VegasInsider.com. And our marketing team will reach out to you if you win. If you do not have a Vegas Insider user ID, by the way, put those in the comments section below. You want to know where to put them in the comments section below. If you do not have a Vegas Insider user ID, it's very easy to get one. Go up to the big yellow register button in the upper right-hand corner. Click on that. Free membership. Register now. And get your user ID. Create it. Password as well. Email address, first name, last name. Put it all in there so we can get in contact with you. And you'll be all set. And it's free to register. Free. So, that's it. Coming back Thursday, we'll have a football game. Steelers and Cowboys, Hall of Fame game in Canton. I am Kevin Rogers. Thanks a lot for watching. We appreciate it. As always, thank you very much for your support. And just like we like to say every show, best of luck with your bets. Goodbye.